They laughed. Not a nervous chuckle. Not an awkward giggle. They laughed like it was the funniest thing they'd heard all night. It happened at the end of dinner after the roast turkey, the carefully poured Pinot Noir, the matching beige napkins folded into tulips, and the curated playlist Emily had emailed to the restaurant manager a week prior. I was sitting at the far end of the long wooden table, sipping water, while the rest of them filled their glasses with wine I'd paid for. Watching. Always watching. Emily stood up. Her wine glass raised a lazy smile dancing on her lips, just dramatic enough to command the room. Everyone quieted. She had that power. She always had. "Here's to family," she said, her voice lilting like a toast from a Hallmark movie. "To unconditional love, to shared memories and being there for each other no matter what." She paused. A beat. Just long enough for me to know something was coming. Except for Hannah, of course. The failure who thinks money makes her worth something. There it was, and then they laughed. Not just her, my parents, my cousins, even my Aunt Lorraine, who sees me once a year and still calls me Heather by mistake, laughed into her sparkling rosé. It was the kind of laughter that echoes in your chest long after it ends. That seeps into the cracks of your confidence and settles there. I didn't laugh. I looked at Emily, at her smug, well-moisturized face, her velvet dress that I recognized from the Nordstrom wish list she'd sent to Mom, claiming she couldn't afford it this year. She was glowing, and I was her punchline. So I stood up, calm, clear, holding nothing but a half-empty glass of water. To the failure, I said, raising it slightly, who just stopped paying for everything you own. The silence hit so fast it felt like a blackout. Forks mid-air. A wine glass tilted its contents still. The restaurant's soft background music suddenly felt intrusive. Emily blinked. Dad sat up straighter. Mom opened her mouth, but nothing came out. And me, I smiled. Soft. Not cruel, but precise. Starting tonight, the car insurance, the condo bills, the family health fund, even this dinner, it's off my books. I glanced toward the restaurant manager who stood at the entrance holding a leather bill folder, eyes politely averted. "That one's on you, Emily." The spell was broken. The laughter had died. And with it, the version of me they all thought would keep playing along. Emily's face twisted, first shock, then anger, then confusion. Mom's eyes darted to Dad, who looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. A few cousins pushed their chairs back just enough to create distance. No one said anything, not a word. Emily stormed out first. Her heels clicked against the hardwood like accusations. The rest followed. Some mumbled excuses. Some avoided eye contact entirely. No one asked me if I was okay. I waited until they were gone. Then yes, I paid the bill. Not because they deserved it. Not because I changed my mind, but because I wanted that moment to end clean. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of calling me petty or emotional. I wasn't making a scene. I was drawing a line. And this time, I wasn't erasing it. That night, I drove home alone through the cold. The silence in my car felt warmer than the entire evening had. My phone buzzed before I even made it to the freeway. Texts from Dad. "That wasn't fair, Hannah. You blindsided everyone. Voicemail from Mom Sweetheart. Emily was just joking. Please don't let one comment ruin decades of love." And Emily. "You seriously embarrassed me. Grow up, you're not a victim. Hope your money keeps you warm." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop, pulled up the spreadsheet I'd been updating for years, the one that held every payment, every emergency transfer, every time I'd kept them afloat, without a word. It wasn't revenge, it was truth. Truth measured in dollars, dates, and silence, and I hit send, subject line. In case you forgot, attachment ledger 2015-2022.xlsx, no body text, just the facts. People say kids don't remember the early stuff, but I remember everything. I remember Emily twirling in the living room in her new dance costume while Mom clapped and Dad filmed on his old camcorder. I was 5. I just taught myself how to read, and I tried to tell them about the solar system poster I'd taped to my bedroom wall. Mom smiled, distracted. Dad said, "That's nice, honey," without looking up. Emily got flowers. I got told I was so mature for my age. They meant it as a compliment. It felt like a muzzle. Growing up, Emily was the chaos they adored. She was glitter and noise tantrums in Target aisles and applause at school plays. When she cried, they came running. When she wanted something, they stretched the budget. When she failed, they called it a phase. And me, I learned early that being low maintenance made me easier to love. So I was. I kept my grades perfect. I got a part-time job at 16 and opened my own savings account. I stopped asking for help, attention, or room to break. While Emily switched majors like outfits, I was paying rent on a shoebox apartment and teaching myself how to code. She stayed in college for 6 years and never finished. I built a freelance career before 20. She posted filtered sunsets captioned healing. I filed quarterly taxes. And still, when she stumbled, they called me. "Sweetheart, she's just figuring things out. Can you spot her until her Etsy shop takes off? It's just 1 more month of rent. You're so good with money, we're just asking for a little help." I became their fallback plan, the soft landing. The spreadsheet, they never saw just the wiring instructions. It wasn't just big emergencies. It was everything. The time Emily forgot Mom's birthday, I overnighted a gift. When Dad needed surgery and insurance didn't cover the full amount, I covered the gap. When Emily's boyfriend totaled her car and she couldn't deal right now, I paid for the tow, the repair, the rental. No one asked how I was doing. They assumed I was fine, responsible, self-sufficient, and I was. But I was also tired. There were jokes, always jokes. "Don't work yourself into a heart attack, hon. You know money doesn't buy happiness, right? She just sends money. Hannah's not the emotional one." They laughed. I nodded, and I kept wiring the funds. Until one year, Emily gave me a Christmas gift, a mug. It said CEO of being lonely. She laughed as I opened it. Mom sipped her eggnog and said, "Oh, Emily, that's terrible," but didn't correct her. Dad chuckled. No one noticed I didn't drink my cocoa. I kept that mug. I still have it. It's not funny, it's proof. Proof that my role wasn't just tolerated, it was defined, and not by me. I started keeping records. Not for revenge, for reality. I needed something to ground me when guilt crept in, whispering, "Maybe you're being ungrateful," because I was being gaslit by love. So I tracked every dollar, every bailout, every rescue, every little favor. 7 years. $18,400 in rent and utilities, $11,200 in medical bills, $9,700 in failed business ventures, $6,500 in car repairs and breakdowns, $4,000 in vacation and holiday expenses, $1,000 in last-minute emergencies. No repayment plans, no thanks, just expectations. I was raised to believe that love meant giving, that being useful made you valuable. But there's a fine line between being generous and being used. And I had crossed it so many times I no longer knew where the line had been. So when Emily raised that glass on Thanksgiving and reduced me to a punchline, she wasn't breaking something new. She was naming what had always been true. And I finally listened. The email didn't have a subject line designed to start a fight. Just 3 words in case you forgot. Attached a spreadsheet file. Ledger 2015-2022. No dramatic message, no demands, no passive-aggressive emojis, just rows and columns, just the truth. Amounts, dates, categories, totals. 7 years of silent sacrifice, color-coded in neat Excel tabs. Medical, rent, school, repairs, birthdays, bailouts, $49,800. That was the number at the bottom. The price of being the failure who thinks money makes her worth something. I didn't wait for a response. I closed my laptop, poured tea, and sat in the quiet. It felt clean. It didn't take long. Emily responded 3 hours later. No greeting, no shame. "Wow, you really are that insecure. Congrats. You want a medal?" I didn't reply. Because her words weren't new. She'd always believed that needing money was forgivable, but talking about money was offensive. That was the deal. I fund the fantasy and we all pretend it's love. Not anymore. The next morning, Mom called, straight to voicemail. "Hannah, this isn't like you. You're hurt. I get it. But don't make permanent decisions over something said in the moment. That's not who you are." Funny, because it is who I am. Not the unshakable vault, not the bank with the smiling face, not the backup plan. I didn't answer. I didn't owe anyone a performance. Then came Emily's boyfriend on Instagram of all places. Real classy, throwing your family under the bus for attention. She was joking. You're the one who made it ugly. I didn't even know he followed me. I blocked him. I blocked Emily too. I didn't slam the door. I locked it. And then just when I thought the silence might stick, an envelope showed up in my mailbox. Cream-colored. No return address. Just my name in shaky black ink. My father's handwriting. Inside a thick stack of paper. Photocopied bank statements. Email printouts. A single handwritten note on top. Hannah. We've made mistakes. I've made mistakes. You need to know what's going on. I didn't know where else to turn. Dad. That line, I didn't know where else to turn, hit harder than the toast ever did, because my father had always been the one with the tight jaw and short answers, the one who told me to stop making drama when I cried at 10 because Emily had ruined my favorite sweater and laughed. But now he was asking me to listen. I read the pages like evidence in a trial. Bank records from the past 2 years showing joint accounts being drained steadily. $1, $200 here, $2,800 there. ATM withdrawals, PayPal transfers, over and over the same label, E. Carson Emily. Shopping sprees, spa appointments, weekend getaways I'd seen on her Instagram. And then the email that shifted something deep inside me. From Dad to their financial advisor. We may need to refinance the house. I didn't realize how far behind we were. I've tried talking to Emily. She says she's handling it. But Hannah can't know. She's done enough already. She's done enough already. That sentence broke me. Not because it hurt, but because it was the closest thing to acknowledgement I'd ever gotten. And it wasn't even said to me. It was buried in a chain of desperation. Typed by fingers that had never once sent me a message that simply said, "Thank you." That night, I sat at my kitchen table, tea gone cold, staring at the wreckage in front of me. Not just numbers, patterns, not just mistakes, dependencies, not just betrayal, proof. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for someone else to make it right. I had clarity, I had receipts, and I had a choice. I could walk away, or I could fix it, but not for them, for me. Because if I didn't break the cycle here now, it would spin forever through guilt, through silence, through inheritance, through expectation. So the next morning I made a call, not to Mom, not to Dad, not to Emily, to a lawyer. Her name was Marissa Adler. Sharp, unapologetic, practical in a way that didn't require small talk. She wasn't shocked by the story. When I laid out the joint accounts, the secret withdrawals, the emotional blackmail wrapped in family holidays, she just tapped her pen and said, "What you're describing isn't unusual. It's not just financial abuse. It's dependency-enabled, cultivated, and disguised as love." She looked me in the eye. "You're not the victim here. You're the structure." That word, structure, it stayed with me. Because I wasn't a daughter, I wasn't a sister, I was the thing holding it all up, unseen, unacknowledged, and one bad day away from collapse. And I didn't want revenge. I didn't want control. I wanted out. Marissa drafted a plan, 3 steps, clean, legal, final. Step 1. I would purchase the family home at full market value through a private trust. No sentiment, no favors. This removed it from the risk of foreclosure or being used as leverage again. Step 2. The trust would grant lifetime residence to my parents, but only them. If they ever tried to add Emily take out a loan or transfer rights, the trust would freeze, instantly. Step 3. I'd pay off their existing debts using funds from my personal investments, but this time with full documentation, legal oversight, and signatures. No more late-night Venmos. No more just this once. And Emily, she was not included. It was done in under a week. The money moved. The documents were filed. The house was no longer theirs. It was mine, locked inside a legal boundary they couldn't touch. And then I wrote the letter. It wasn't long. It wasn't angry. It was clear. You will not lose your home. You will be protected, but not in control. This is not a punishment. It is a boundary. I sent it with the legal documents. I didn't text after. I didn't ask if they received it. I let the silence do the rest. Dad didn't respond. Mom called 3 times. I didn't answer. Emily texted, "You've lost your mind." I didn't reply, because for the first time in my life, I hadn't lost myself trying to protect them. Later that week, we met at Marissa's office. They looked smaller than I remembered. Tired. Worn down in a way that wasn't just financial, it was generational. They signed. Page after page after page. No fights, no hugs, just pens on paper and the quiet sound of reality catching up to everyone. When it was over, my mom whispered, "Thank you." I nodded, not out of affection, out of closure. Emily didn't show up. I didn't expect her to. That night, I sat in my apartment alone with a glass of wine and the deed. It didn't feel like triumph. It felt like release. For years, I'd carried the weight of being the one who fixed things. Now that weight lived in contracts, in lawyers, in documents they couldn't bend or break. They couldn't guilt me anymore, because guilt didn't matter where the law stepped in. I wasn't the structure anymore. I was the architect, and the life I was about to build, I wouldn't owe it to anyone. It happened on a Sunday. Gray skies, cold wind, that kind of heavy weather that makes silence louder. 3 knocks, sharp, precise, not frantic, entitled. I looked through the peephole. Of course, Emily. No makeup. Hoodie swallowing her frame. Hair pulled back in a knot that wasn't effortless, it was forgotten. She looked like someone who wasn't here to perform. She was here to salvage something, or demand it. I opened the door halfway. Emily. She didn't smile. "We need to talk." She walked in before I agreed, like she always did, like the rules of entry had never applied to her. She stood in my living room, arms crossed, eyes, scanning a space she'd never cared about until it wasn't hers to claim. "So that's it," she snapped. "You just buy the house." Cut everyone out. I said nothing. "Do you even realize how this looks? You make yourself the hero and leave me out in the cold like some kind of villain." I raised an eyebrow. "I'm not fixing anything. I'm protecting what you kept breaking." Her mouth pressed into a hard line. "I didn't know about the house, the loans. That wasn't me." I walked over to the coffee table, picked up the folder, dropped it in front of her. Page 4. She didn't move. "Transfers under your name. Thousands. Monthly. Don't insult me with denial." She stared at the folder like it might explode, but she didn't open it. Her voice was smaller this time. "You could have told me." I didn't laugh. I didn't raise my voice. I said I did. Every time I bailed you out, every time I paid rent or sent money or cleaned up your mess, I told you in silence. You just didn't hear me, because I never shouted. That's on me. She looked down. The defiance was cracking. "So what now?" she said, folding in on herself. "You're done with me just like that." I stepped forward. "No, you were done with me. The moment you stood at that table and made me a punchline. That was your line in the sand." Her eyes shined, but not with apology, with anger, with fear, with the terrifying realization that her old tricks weren't working. "So what now? You get to play savior while I get pushed off a cliff?" I shook my head. "No, you get to start from the ground, like I did, like adults do." She stared at me, disbelief twisting her features. "You're really cutting me off." I nodded, not out of spite, out of survival. Her voice cracked. "What do I even have left?" I didn't flinch. "Whatever you choose to build." That line hit her. Not in the way I wanted. There was no catharsis in her expression, just cold reality settling in like dust. She turned. No parting insult, no slammed door, just quiet steps and one deep breath at the threshold. Then she was gone. And for the first time after she left, I didn't feel guilt. I felt peace. Not triumph, not revenge, just the stillness of finally being free. 2 weeks after Emily walked out of my apartment, the paperwork was finalized. The family home, the one they'd bragged about owning, outright the one Emily used as an ATM, was now protected inside the trust. Signed, sealed, filed. My parents came to Marissa's office to finish it. They sat across the conference table, tired, quiet-aged. No tears, no apologies, just shaky hands and awkward silence as they signed each page. When my mother passed me the final document, she murmured, "You didn't have to do this." I looked at her, calm. No, I didn't. Then I left. Not because I was angry, because I didn't want a fake ending. I didn't want forced hugs or empty closure. I wanted boundaries, real ones, legal ones that couldn't be laughed off at dinner or rewritten in a voicemail. I set up a monthly stipend for my parents, modest enough to live on but not fund anyone else's delusions. Emily was locked out of the trust entirely. The moment her name appeared on any withdrawal or attempt to interfere, the entire fund would freeze. I appointed a third-party trustee to manage it, so I could step away completely. It wasn't about control, it was about distance, the kind that finally let me breathe. 3 weeks later, I heard Emily had moved in with a friend across town, tried a job as a retail stylist, lasted 5 days. The manager was rude, she reportedly said. Classic. I didn't follow up, didn't check in, didn't care. That wasn't my job anymore. Christmas came. No group chat, no calls, just a white envelope in my mailbox. Inside a card from my mother. No glitter, no gift cards. Just one sentence. "We didn't deserve your grace, but thank you anyway." I read it 3 times. I didn't cry. I didn't call. I slid it into the folder next to the financial documents, the one that once held everything that broke me. Now it held something else, proof that I survived. That afternoon I went for a walk. Cold wind on my face, gray skies overhead, the kind of weather that used to feel heavy, but now it felt like clarity. I passed families in scarves, kids holding candy canes, couples laughing over coffee. And I realized for the first time in my adult life, my calendar wasn't centered around other people's needs. No secret payments, no guilt-laced invitations, no emotional ambush disguised as a holiday brunch. Just peace. Not cinematic peace, not Instagram peace. Real peace. The kind that comes when you stop begging for a seat at someone else's table and start building your own. Emily doesn't have a seat at that table, not out of cruelty, because she burned hers. And when people say, "But she's your sister," I nod. Then I say, "And I was hers until I wasn't." I've stopped trying to prove my worth to people who only saw it when it benefited them. I'm not a failure. I'm not the cold one. I'm not the emotional bank account they get to joke about over dessert. I was the foundation. They leaned on me too long. Now I'm no longer holding them up. I'm standing for me. Have you ever been the one holding everyone else together? Have you drawn a line and finally chosen yourself? Tell me in the comments below. And if this story hit something deep, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear you don't owe anyone your silence.